Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today. My name is Roxanne Coulterman. I am the Contracts Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission, and this is the pre-proposal conference for the Statistical Consulting Services, RFP number 362-2023-0006. On the panel today, we have Juanita Riley. She is our Contracts and Procurement Manager. Eric Williams, our Hub Coordinator. Lee Gary, Senior Contracts Attorney. Conchita Daniel, she is our drawing section supervisor. Now, if you have not done so already, please scan the QR code with a mobile device or use the link that was provided to sign in. A copy of the sign-in sheet will be posted on the Electronic State Business Daily, which is also known as the ESBD, and the Texas Lottery website prior to the next business day. This is for sharing of information between prime vendors and subcontractors. Communication will be primarily through the ESBD and the Texas Lottery website. Emails will also be used for the RFP. We strongly advise you to check with your IT department to ensure that our emails will not be filtered away. With some businesses block the phrase lottery, so you won't be able to receive emails from the Texas Lottery Commission if the filter does not allow it to come through. This conference is being recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the conference, and we will answer in the order received during the question and answer session at the end of each part. Our Contracts and Procurement Manager, Juanita, will be monitoring the Q&As. We will review the recording after the conference and reinstate the questions and answers in the Q&A document, which will be released in accordance with the schedule of events. We will give our best responses to your questions today. However, any questions that we cannot answer today will be answered in writing and will be included in the Q&A document. Please note the written Q&A document is our final answer. Following this conference, if you think of additional questions, you have an opportunity to submit these in writing. This is your opportunity to ask questions, and we encourage you to do so regarding the requirements of the RFP. If you are unsure of language written in the RFP or need further clarification, this is your chance to receive the information you need. After proposals are received, it is then the Texas Lottery's time to ask questions and/or seek clarification if needed. Please note that any oral communication that would alter or amend the RFP as written is not binding. Any and all changes or modification to the RFP will be made in writing and posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website. You are encouraged to check these websites throughout this process and once more before submitting a proposal. Please note that there may be several RFPs posted on the TLC website at one time, so be sure that you're reviewing the correct RFP for updates. This RFP is open to any and all vendors who perform the services. To submit a proposal, you do not have to be registered on the centralized master's bidders list, be Hub certified, nor is there any approved vendor list. We will now briefly review the RFP by parts. While we may discuss only certain sections or provision of the RFP during this conference, all sections and provisions of the RFP are important, and you should read and understand the entire RFP before submitting your proposal. Again, you will have an opportunity after each part to ask general questions. So we will begin with Part 1, General Information. Section 1.4, Schedule of Events. This section includes critical dates for this procurement. If there are any changes to these dates up into the deadline for proposals, an amendment will be posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website. In Section 1.7, because we are a state agency, proposals are subject to Public Information Act, which is also known as the Open Records Act. During the procurement process, we will not release any information contained in your proposal. However, after a contract is awarded, your entire proposal is subject to this act and is considered public information. If there is any information in your proposal that is confidential and exempt from disclosure under the Texas Public Information Act, you must mark it as confidential. Examples of confidential information may be financial information or information that you consider trade secret or proprietary. It is important that you mark every applicable page and/or section that you consider confidential, and if possible, mark which exceptions of the Texas Public Information Act it falls under. The Public Information Act is located under Texas Government Code, Chapter 552. Also, you cannot mark your entire proposal confidential. On the Office of Attorney General's website is the Public Information Handbook, which lists all the exceptions. If you have any information that you consider confidential, please respond to section 1.7 and list the information, including a brief commentary or justification in addition to marking individual sections and/or pages. This concludes part 1. Juanita, are there any questions for part 1?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juanita Riley, and I'm the Contracts and Procurement Manager. Roxanne, there are no questions for part 1.
Thank you. I will now go over part 2, proposal process. Section 2.1. I am the sole point of contact for this RFP, and all questions should be directed to me, including hub questions. Section 2.4. Questions shall be submitted via email by the deadline in the schedule of events. Questions submitted after the deadline in the schedule of events will not be answered. Responses will be posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website on or before the date listed in the schedule of events. Section 2.5. Proposals shall be submitted in the format prescribed in this section. Proposals shall be submitted electronically. Proposals are due no later than the deadline established in the schedule of events. Late proposals will not be considered. No exceptions will be made. Section 2.5.1. Electronic responses shall be sent via email to procurement@lottery.state.tx.us. Proposers shall place the RFP name and number along with the proposer's name into the subject line of their email. Please submit one signed original proposal, one copy of evidence of financial soundness, one signed original cost proposal, and one signed original of Part 5. These must be in a searchable, unprotected, portable document format. Each PDF file attachment shall be a separate document and clearly named. Be sure that your proposal contains responses to all sections and parts of the RFP, and be sure that your proposal numbering corresponds with that of the RFP. You may provide a blanket acknowledgement and acceptance for Part 1, 2, and 3 unless a section requires a specific detailed answer. Part 4 and 6 require a section-by-section response. That means for our 4.1, we're looking for a 4.1 in your response that corresponds to the RFP. For financial soundness, please submit one copy. For Part 5, please submit one signed original. For the cost proposal, please submit one signed original. If proposers feel a section does not provide a detailed response, then it is acceptable to state that you agree and will comply. Section 2.5.6, the proposer's commitment, which is attachment A, and the background information certification, which is attachment D1. Both must be signed by an officer or agent of proposer with the authority to contractually bind the proposer, and the signed original attachment must be included in the original proposal. Section 2.5.9. Please note copyrighted proposals are unacceptable and may be rejected. Section 2.6. This section covers the format and contents for which your proposal must be organized, which includes the following: letter of transmittal, executive summary, section-by-section response to the RFP, evidence of financial soundness, hub subcontracting plan, cost proposal, proposal's commitment, background information certification. Section 2.7, letter of transmittal. The letter must state that the proposal is valid for 180 days. 180 days. Also include an overview of why your company is most qualified and include a statement accepting the terms and conditions in Part 3 and/or any exceptions to such. Section 2.8, Executive Summary. This should be a full and concise summary and not exceed 5 pages. Section 2.10, Proposers, Costs, Proposal. Cost proposal must be in the format included in Attachment G and needs to be in a separate PDF file. We only need one signed original. Disclosure of costs in the body of the written proposal is cause for disqualification. The PDF file should only contain the cost proposal. Do not include any marketing material or other information in your cost proposal. The cost proposal is not open until after the proposal is scored on its merit, on technical merit. Therefore, any additional materials that are included in the cost proposal will not be evaluated. Section 2.11, Multiple Proposals. Proposers may submit only one proposal and one cost proposal. If the proposer submits more than one proposal, all proposals from that proposer may be rejected. Section 2.12. Any RFP changes, modification, or cancellation will be posted on the ESPD and TLC website. Section 2.15. Proposal Evaluation. The scoring matrix is Attachment F and will be used for the evaluation of proposals in response to this RFP. Please note that there are 2 pass-fail categories, HSP and financial analysis. Your proposal essentially goes through 4 phases once it's been submitted. 1, it would be initially assessed for compliance and completeness. 2, it is reviewed for financial and HSP analysis. 3, it is reviewed and evaluated for its technical merit. And 4, the cost proposal is open and reviewed. Now, if at any given time your proposal is disqualified, you'll receive a notice stating such. Juanita, are there any questions for Part 2?
Yes, we do have one question. Can cost proposals be submitted via email, or is a sealed mailed envelope required?
So in our RFP, we state that the proposal shall be submitted via email.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Juanita. I will now go over Part 3, Contractual Terms and Conditions. This part describes in terms and conditions which apply to the procurement process and which will become part of the contract executed pursuant to this RFP. Please read over this entire RFP document to ensure that you fully understand and will comply with all provisions. Any exceptions to the RFP should be clearly stated in the letter of transmittal, providing specific and detailed reasons for each exception, along with suggested alternative language. The contract resulting from the RFP will incorporate the RFP, any amendments, the questions and responses, the contractor's proposal, and cost proposal. Please note a performance bond is required under RFP Section 3.34 and is required under the State Lottery Act. Therefore, we cannot accept alternatives. Under Section 3.55.1, the contractor will be required to take the Texas Lottery's cybersecurity training program and sign the Information Security Agreement. Now, in addition, Section 3.55.2, Prohibited Technology, Section 3.55.3, Cloud Computing, and Section 3.55.4, Data Protection, are recently new laws that have passed. This concludes our Part 3. Juanita, are there any questions for Part 3?
Roxanne, there are no questions for Part 3.
Thank you. I will now go over Part 4, Required Information. Section 4.1 through 4.5. Although these sections seem brief in the RFP, These sections require proposers to gather, compile, and submit a great deal of detailed documentation. Please read these sections in depth and provide all the information in your section-by-section responses. Section 4.6, Conflict of Interest. In this section, you are asked to disclose any actual, potential, and/or perceived conflicts of interest. Please review this section and make any disclosures. Section 4.7, Financial Soundness. The Texas Lottery Commission does a thorough financial analysis of all proposals. Please provide the information requested under this section. If you feel this information is confidential, please mark it as such. Again, this is a pass-fail category on the scoring matrix, and it is critical that you provide the requested information. Section 4.8, Background Investigation. The Texas Lottery Commission reserves the right to conduct an in-depth background investigation on the apparent successful proposer. Section 4.8.2. A background investigation may be conducted on contractual defined vendor principal, meaning those who will be directly involved in selling or leasing the goods or performing the services subject to this RFP or resulting in a contract. This includes partners, shareholders, officers, and directors who are directly involved. Section 4.8.3. Background investigations may be conducted on vendor employees who meet one or more of the criteria under this section. This contract requires a background investigation of employees on site at the Texas Lottery Commission. Background investigations will include fingerprinting. The apparent successful proposer may be required to complete background forms by the prescribed time after the written announcement of the apparent successful proposer by the Texas Lottery. As mentioned before, we ask that all proposers complete and submit attachment D1 with its proposal. This is a certification that your company will not be denied a sales agent license under Texas Government Code 466.155, which is attachment D in the RFP. Section 4.9, Disclosure of Interested Parties. If requested, the successful proposer will be required to fill out a 1295 form with the Texas Ethical Commission. This is for contracts over $1 million and if you're not a public traded company. Juanita, are there any questions for Part 4?
Roxanne, there are no questions for Part 4.
Okay, thank you. So for Part 5, I will turn it over to our Hub Coordinator, Eric Williams. Eric?
Thank you, Roxanne. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams, the Hub Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. I will be covering a very crucial element of your proposal, the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or HSP. If you're not the individual responsible for preparing the HSP, please pass this information to them and recommend they watch the video of this pre-proposal conference, which will be posted on the agency website. The Hub Subcontracting Plan is used to identify both Hub and non-Hub subcontractors that will be utilized under the awarded contract. All proposers, Hub and non-Hub, submitting a response to this RFP are required to submit an HSP. No one is exempt. As Roxanne previously mentioned, the HSP is a pass-fail element of this RFP. No evaluation points are given for the HSP, and proposers must submit an HSP with their proposal regardless of their subcontracting intentions. Any proposal received, not including an HSP, will be rejected, and the technical portion will not be evaluated. So it's important to submit a completed HSP with your proposal. Also, during the reviewing process, if it is determined that your submitted HSP has failed, your proposal will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. The HSP process is governed by a rule established by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. Per Section 5.1 of the RFP, you are responsible for reviewing this rule. To assist you with the HSP, the Texas Lottery provides the following resources and assistance. All vendors are strongly encouraged to take advantage of all the resources. This pre-proposal conference will be posted on the agency website. A copy of the Lottery Commission's pre-bid proposal conference booklet regarding HSP requirements is available on the agency website. A HSP quick checklist is included in the RFP. Proposers have the opportunity to submit written HSP questions at any time up until the proposal deadline. However, we suggest you submit questions early to allow yourself the necessary time to cure any deficiencies with your plan. You are encouraged to start working on your plan right away to give yourself plenty of time. The HSP Q&A is posted on the Lottery Commission's website and on the ESBD, which will be a rolling document, so be sure to check the date posted. We will review drafts of your HSP to identify deficiencies and provide feedback. However, we will not state whether your draft has passed or failed. We will conduct one-on-one workshops upon request. These may be conducted via Zoom, Teams, or telephone conference call. The purpose of the workshops is to discuss the Hub subcontracting requirements, answer questions specific to conducting the good faith effort, and completing the HSP forms. This process will allow you the opportunity to submit a draft HSP for review by the Lottery Commission prior to the proposal deadline. As previously stated, this process does not guarantee that the HSP submitted with the proposal will pass. It is the proposal's responsibility to understand the requirements of the HSP and to perform all the required steps prior to submitting their HSP. The last date to review any draft HSPs for deficiencies and one-on-one workshops is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. As per section 2.1 of the RFP, again, please forward all questions or requests to Roxanne. The definition of a subcontractor is very broad and applies to any third-party vendor used to fulfill a portion of the contract. Our definition of a subcontractor is a person who contracts with a successful proposer to work, to supply commodities, or contribute toward completing work for the Texas Lottery Commission. In other words, if the successful proposer who is awarded this contract is paying anyone who is not an employee to provide goods and or services, they are very likely subcontracting under this definition. These individuals will receive a 1099, unlike your employees who receive a W-2. We've identified potential subcontracting opportunities in section 5.5.1 of the RFP. These areas may or may not be subcontracted depending on the proposer's existing resources, employees, and business models. You are not limited to the list in the RFP. However, if you intend to subcontract any portion of the contract and is not listed, you are responsible for identifying it in your HSP submission. We have included in the RFP a list of hub vendors by CMBL class and commodity description to assist you in finding potential hub vendors. The Lottery Commission does not endorse, recommend, or attest to the capabilities of any company or individual listed within the RFP or on the CMBL Hub Search Directory. Proposals who intend to subcontract any portion of the contract must indicate in the HSP form that they intend to subcontract and must perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods identified below. The goal of this good faith effort is to actively involve hubs in the Texas procurement process and ensure they receive a fair share of state business. Please check the appropriate boxes in section 2, the respondent subcontracting intentions of the HSP form, and perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods. The optional quick checklist will assist you in determining which of the three methods you should use. Good faith effort method A has two options. Method A, option 1, this option is for the proposer who will use only Texas Certified Hubs for all subcontracting opportunities listed in Section 2B of the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions on the HSP form. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method A, option 2, meeting the specified hub contract goal. This section is for the proposer who will use a combination of non-hub and Texas certified hubs for the identified subcontracting opportunities listed in Section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intentions on the HSP forms. However, the specified hub contract goal of 23.4% can only be met by the subcontracting opportunities awarded to the Texas certified hub vendors with whom the proposer has contracted with for 5 years or less. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method B, good faith effort outreach. This option is for the proposer who will perform good faith effort outreach for each identified subcontracting opportunity listed in Section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intention on the HSP forms. You will provide written notification of each subcontracting opportunity to 3 or more Texas certified hubs. Allow the hubs at least 7 working days, excluding the day the solicitation was emailed, mailed, or faxed to the hub vendors, weekends, holidays, and other days the executive director has closed the agency, to respond to the notice prior to submitting your bid response to the Lottery Commission. In your written notification, please provide the scope of work for hubs to determine whether they're interested, a location where the specifications are located and can be reviewed, i.e., a link to the posting on the ESBD or a physical location within your company. Also, provide information regarding insurance and bonding requirements if applicable. And in addition, provide written notification of each subcontracting opportunity to 2 or more trade organizations or development centers in Texas to assist in identifying potential hubs by disseminating the subcontracting opportunity to their members or participants. You must provide your subcontracting opportunity notice to the trade organizations or development centers at least 7 days prior to submitting your bid response to the Lottery Commission. Again, in your written notification, please provide the scope of work for hubs to determine whether they're interested, a location where the specifications are located and can be reviewed, i.e., a link to the posting on the ESBD or a physical location within your company. Also, information regarding insurance and bonding requirements, again, only if applicable. A mentor may be utilized from a state agency-sponsored mentor-protege agreement for subcontracting if the protege is able to provide services. The mentor-protege relationship may be utilized in lieu of additional solicitations or soliciting to hubs. Proposals using this method must perform outreach even for areas where a proposer has a pre-existing or exclusive subcontracting opportunity that will be used in performance of this contract. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is currently an active hub listed on the CMBL. The proposer who does not intend to subcontract, proposals who indicate that their company will be that their company will not be subcontracting any portion of the contract and will be fulfilling the entire contract with their own existing resources, including its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, will be self-performing. Keep in mind that a pre-existing subcontracting relationship is considered subcontracting, in which case you cannot claim self-performance. A pre-existing subcontractor relationship is a business affiliation your company has with a third-party vendor and is currently supplying your company with goods and their services and will continue to supply those goods and their services to assist you in the performance of this contract. If you determine that your company is capable of fulfilling the entire contract with your own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, please check the appropriate box in Section 2, the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions of the HSP form. Complete Section 3, which is the self-performing justification, and this is done by providing a thorough explanation of how your company will perform the entire contract with its own employees, supplies, materials, and/or equipment as it relates to Part 6 of the RFP, the scope of services. Complete Section 4 of the HSP form, the affirmation, prior to submitting your HSP with your proposal. Our evaluation process for proposals received on or before the deadline for proposals is to review and evaluate the HSP and all supporting documentations to determine if the HSP has passed or failed. During our review, we may request clarification of information in your submitted HSP. Again, there are no evaluation points assigned to the HSP. It is strictly a pass or fail element. If it is determined that your HSP has failed, the technical portion of your proposal will not be evaluated. Following the award of the contract, any proposed changes to the HSP must be submitted for review and approval by the agency. A written change approval form will be provided by the Lottery Commission. Subcontracting without prior authorization is a breach of contract. Monthly subcontracting expenditure reports are required as a condition of payment. Also, the successful proposer must provide written notice to each subcontractor informing them of their selection. A copy of this notice must be provided to the Lottery Commission no later than 10 working days after contract award, as stated in Section 5.6.1 of the RFP. The notice must specify, at a minimum, the contracting agency's name and its point of contact for the contract award number, the subcontracting opportunity to be performed, the appropriate dollar value of the subcontracting opportunity, and the expected percentage of the total contract that the subcontracting opportunity represents. Again, we strongly encourage you to take full advantage of all the available resources to assist you with this HSP submission. Once you submit your HSP with a proposal, there's no opportunity to cure. Please consult the schedule of events and make sure that you know which dates are critical in terms of preparing and submitting the HSP. In closing, I'll remind you again, if you're not the person who is responsible for completing the HSP, please pass this information to them, as well as let them know that today's pre-proposal conference will be available for view on the agency website. Please submit questions regarding the HSP after this conference in writing, and they will be answered and posted on the agency website and the ESBD. HSP questions can be submitted up until the deadline for proposal, which is listed in Section 1.4 of the RFP. Ms. Riley, are there any questions regarding Part 5 of the RFP?
Eric, there are no questions for Part 5.
Thank you, and I will turn it over to Roxanne.
Thank you, Eric. For Part 6, Scope of Services, Part 6 requires a section-by-section response. I will not be going into detail on this section. This is your opportunity to tell us how you will perform the services described in each section. It is not enough to say that you can do something. Tell us how you will do it. Provide examples of techniques that you've used for success. Proposers need to demonstrate their ability to do the work requested. Juanita, are there any questions for Part 6?
Roxanne, there are no questions for Part 6.
Okay. We are towards the end of our conference. Please submit any questions in the Q&A feature, or you can submit your questions in accordance with the schedule of events. Now, here are some final reminders. All scope of services questions must be submitted in writing via email to me by the deadline in the schedule events. Scope of services questions that are not submitted in writing by the time and date specified will not be answered. If you have a question on the RFP process, you can contact me and I may be able to respond. Generally, this is the case for all sections except for Part 6, but again, do not hesitate to ask. Please make note of all dates in the schedule events. Proposers are responsible for checking the ESBD and the TLC website for any and all notices, amendments, and Q&A regarding this RFP. We will not email you directly. Prior to submission of your proposal, please review the entire RFP carefully to ensure that you submit all required information and/or documentation. The pre-proposal conference video and sign-in sheet will be on the ESBD and TLC website prior to the end of the next business day. Again, Juanita, are there any questions pending?
No, Roxanne, there are no questions.
Okay, thank you. This concludes our conference. Again, thank you for attending, and I hope you have a great afternoon.